Welcome to SEO Hangouts with Josh Bachynski. I am Josh Bachynski, and this is a science SEO show. If you've never seen the show before, we use the cutting-edge science to determine what the ranking factors are in Google. And today I'm going to be reverse engineering some more of the ranking algorithms in Google. Last week, this is kind of a two-parter. Last week, I talked about a couple things. I'll go over those briefly again, and then I'll continue on with something I'm calling document potency, which is very important in SEO these days. If you've never heard the show before, I just want to let you know that if you have any SEO questions, you can ask them in the top right-hand side live on YouTube. If you have any websites you want me to analyze, like I have the two most important pieces of SEO software at the ready, both correlation software, and I also have Screaming Frog ready to take a look at your site and give you some SEO help if you need it. And as I said, you can ask questions at the top right-hand side on YouTube if you're watching live. And so if you want me to take a look at your URLs, try to get them in early so I see them earlier on so that I can get to those, because otherwise I have a whole bunch of stuff I want to talk about. If you have any SEO questions, you can email me at joshbachynski@gmail.com if you're having any SEO issues at all. If you need an SEO audit, if you need some SEO help, if you have any SEO issues, email me at joshbachynski@gmail.com. I'd love to try and help you out. Yeah, so as I said, science, we're using SEO science today, which doesn't care what you believe. Science, the proof, the evidence to try and reverse engineer what Google's algorithms are and to try and tell what's going on. And I'm going to talk about what we've found at a very, very high level. So I'll get right to that. So I'll share the screen here. Okay, so here is that list, and I'll have YouTube on the side so I can just see any questions. There we go. So anyway, as I said, here's my email address, joshbachynski@gmail.com. If you have any questions, and this is part of our ongoing segment of what's new in SEO 2019 using science to reverse engineer Google's algorithms, which we've had quite a lot of success. If you want to see the success, don't take my word for it. Go to bit.ly/SEO proof, and you'll see the examples of all of our reverse engineering Google's algorithms and our huge ranking boosts we've gotten, the difficult niches we've ranked in. It really is quite revolutionary. So go ahead and don't take my word for it. Go ahead and take a look at bit.ly/SEO proof. Okie dokie. We're in the lazy days of summer. I don't even know if anybody will come on and ask questions, but that's fine. So I can talk all, to my heart's content. So just very quickly, I'm going to go over what we covered last week, and then I'm going to get on to semantic content vectoring and then document potency versus element potency, which ironically, these two things are probably the most important ranking factor, bar none. These are probably the most important ranking factor for ranking in 2019. But I saved them for last, and so I'll go over the first stuff first. But this one here is very important as well, and it's called Query Deserves Diversity. And I call it the aspect, the QDD aspect, and essentially it's an A/B test that Google can use to put your websites up, to boost your website up on Google. For example, if I show you this particular, not this one, this particular one here was done through QDD aspect. So that boost you see there, from way down in, like, I don't know, position 60 something to position 9. And you see the date there? That's that's 9 days ago. This is very recent. This was gotten by QDD aspect, by manipulating the aspect and using the Query Deserves Diversity algorithm to our benefit, which we've been able to reverse engineer a little bit how it works. Not fully, because there's any number of patches on top of the content vectoring on top of that you never know Google has. But they don't have many because it's harder for them to maintain moving on over time. Ask any software engineer how many patches they like to have in their software. The answer is 0. The answer is none, because it makes it more difficult to upgrade the code, make the code do something different, move the code forward. So the QDD aspect is a patch on top of the content vectoring. So I'm sure they don't have many of them. Anyhow, I just want to prove that it worked. And that's from bit.ly SEO proof. That's where I got that from, one of our examples. So what is the aspect? Well, the aspect, if I show you this diagram here, this is a good example of the aspect. The aspect is the aspect of your exact match query, or the angle of your article. What slant you're going towards. Like, these guys are going for buying guide. These guys are going for 2019 review. These guys went for Canada, and that got floated up because of the geographic component to QDD aspect. These guys went for sleep or sleepers. These guys went for July 2019. So that has nothing to do with the exact match query, the EMQ they're trying to rank for necessarily per se. It's kind of a different aspect of that exact match query. And so it's very important about knowing how this works, how to set it. In my mentorship group, I teach you how to set this, how to manipulate this, how to get those kinds of boosts you saw to position 9 or even higher, preferably, from doing stuff like this. And it's very important to keep in mind. Typically, you'll get position 1 or 9 from using date, I've noticed before. But typically, they reserve these spots to 3, 4, and 6 is what we notice in our testing. So it's like, so basically, that one I showed you seemed to be on average 9, but usually it sits around 6, sometimes a little higher 3. So it's 3, 6, or 9 usually is what it sits at, and so it averaged out to 6. That makes perfect sense because that's exactly what I manipulated. I manipulated the aspect, the QDD aspect of it. And it's effectively an A/B test, right? Google's only going to put you up there as long as people are clicking on you and don't dislike you or don't do certain bad things on your site, because there are certain deranking factors. Traffic has more deranking factors in the content vectoring loop than it does positive factors, unless they're going through one of their testing periods like they did in the Florida update, which that's what that was, by the way. March was the Florida update, and June was another content vectoring update. Those are both content vectoring updates, and you can know that happens very clearly when Google puts out certain signals. For one, query deserves freshness. Any recently fetched page gets a boost, and so if you're not paying attention to these updates, all of your testing and all your trials and all your things are going on are going to fail. But on the plus side of that, once they're doing one of these content vectoring retraining of the algorithm they're doing that they do for a couple of weeks, any new page is going to get a boost. So make sure you fetch your pages on a regular basis, especially if it's an important sales period for you. That could maybe get you out of it. Maybe not. It depends on a couple factors, but you might be able to use that to your advantage. So go ahead, try it. Jesper Neeson, one of my students, says, "Hey, Josh, hope you're enjoying the summer." Thanks, Jesper. I hope you're doing well too, my friend. So here's the pros and the cons. The pros are you're going to get ranking boosts, and Google's going to try you for certain things, anywhere from position 1, 3, 4, 6, and 9 in my testing, plus or minus a spot based on some other factors. So that can kind of, these are just the averages, statistical averages where I see them. But the problem is that, you may not, unless you're getting boosted to position 1, great, or even position 0, which is the featured snippet aspect. That's great. Of course, that's even higher than 1. 0 is better. But unless you're getting that 0, that 1, these might not be the places you want to be. You might not be getting enough clicks there. That might not be good enough for you. In our group, we go for position number 1 or position 0, preferably. So that might not be good enough. It depends on what else is going on in your SERP and how many ads are there, and if you're in local in the map pack or not. If there's ads and you're in the local map pack, then even position 3 may not be good enough. You might not be getting any clicks at all compared to the map pack and compared to the ads. Even position 1, you might not get any organic clicks at all. It's kind of that's the way Google's going. They just float their ads up there, and they make that little ad, the little ad icon, so small that nobody notices and nobody cares. And they just click whatever is at the top, like mind the zombies. And so, we may not be getting any organic traffic at all in that case. But that being all said, this is how you would do this and get this. It's better than, being on page 1 is better than page 2. So, I'll take, like I showed you here, I will take, wasn't this one? Is this one? I'll take this any day. Like if a client asked me to produce this for them and I produced it, this would be a win, so this is going in the right direction for sure. So that's definitely kind of what you want to see and what you want to do there. You have to know how to trigger it properly. It's a bit of an art to trigger it. So if you want information on that, email me at joshbachynski@gmail.com. And my mentorship group, I teach my students how to do this properly. I'm having a sale on the mentorship group right now, so I'm having a special. So email me, and maybe I can help you out. I have to see how many people sign up and how long I'll have this kind of special on for right now. Email me at joshbachynski@gmail.com if you're not an existing student. Here's another thing. You have to be ready for the A/B test. And so there's no point in getting Google to boost you if your CRO sucks, if you're not going to convert, if the people can't find your content, if the traffic's not going to like it. So it's not going to help you at all if you're not ready for the A/B test. So you really shouldn't be doing any of this until you're ready to convert. And how do you know you're ready to convert? Well, you already bought some traffic, preferably from Facebook because it's the cheapest, and watch what they do on your site, or even AdWords traffic, and watch what they do on your site. And then you know whether or not you're ready to convert and what's going on there. One lovely thing about this is that this can get you out of the sandbox, the quote unquote sandbox. So just so you understand, I don't think that there is an arbitrary algorithm that demotes new pages because they're new pages. Like nothing like the sandbox concept that people normally talk about. I don't think that's how it works or that's what happens. But well, in a way, mostly no. In a way, there is, though, because it depends on your quality and it depends if they trust you. Google has admitted that if they don't trust your site, that means if you don't have good quality, then they are going to kind of sandbox your pages, and that they're not going to rank them. And if they do trust your site, they are going to try you out. They're gonna try you out on the SERP. So there is kind of a sandbox in that regard, but it has to do with the quality algorithms. It has nothing to do with an arbitrary time period of like a ticking clock. Like, okay, you got to wait your 6 months. It's a new page. It doesn't work that way at all. So this can get you out of that arbitrary period where Google hasn't tried you for a while. If you change your aspect, then they can try you again if you know how to set it properly. If you can coax Google into getting it. And here's another thing. And if you want more information about this, I talked more about this last week. I'm trying to move on forward to get to these topics, which I'm going to cover today. Here's you might want to avoid the commonly used aspect. I mean, you do or you don't. It depends. If you're working in a very competitive niche, you probably want to avoid reviews, 2019, best, etc., because there's a danger of non-indexation. I've noticed that when people are trying to go for the reviews aspect, they can't even get their page indexed. Like Google will discover it, they'll crawl it, but they won't even index it in their multivariable indexing algorithms, meaning you don't get any rankings anytime. So not even some rankings some of the time, you don't get any rankings any of the time, which is the bad thing. So you got to look to see if they already have 1,000 reviews of best red apples reviews, reviews. If too many people are hitting that aspect, then you might not even get them to even index you. There's 5-ish rules or so to follow for proper QDD aspect. And then one of them that I recommend to kind of break with this model, if you have a lot of competition, is try something for humans or something that's clicky. Something that people are going to like. I don't know, free parking in local, free shipping, 50% off sale, limited time offer, stuff, those kinds of aspects might be appropriate for your keyword. It depends on your keyword. And it might get people clicking more. At the end of the day, this is an A/B test, don't forget. So if you want to stick these kinds of rankings that we can get in our mentorship group, you're going to want to make sure you have an aspect that human beings are going to like. And this all ties into quality. This ties into traffic. This ties into exact match query stuff. It's all related. Once you understand the Google algorithm and how brilliant the PhDs at Google are and how elegant they've written their algorithm is, you realize that it's all kind of related. As I said before, really at the end of the day, kind of what it is, the entire Google algorithm kind of works like this. There's a very fine curve grade, and that's content vectoring. That's content vectoring and potency. And then it's just interspersed with, this is QDD of them trying out different stuff. But otherwise, it would pull this one over here that would have been there, right? Or to pull this one up here that would have been there, that kind of a thing. That is basically the diagram of how Google works in its entirety. It's so simple and elegant because Google is, they're pretty good at what they do. They've been doing it a while. They're pretty brilliant when it comes to it. And the last thing I want to say is that don't get trapped in these pseudoscientific meanderings of other groups. Once you do some real scientific testing, you start to really realize that there's no such thing as sentiment keywords, no such thing as date keywords, no such thing as review, no do keywords, no entity keywords. None of that works. It's all content vectoring, semantic content vectoring with element potency and things like that, proximity, things like that, that scale them up naturally, and then QDD to put on top of these kinds of things. John Lewis says, last week's show was very interesting, so I watched this with a great deal of attention. Great, John, I'm glad. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and ask them there in the chat. We're in the lazy days of summer, so you probably don't even need to put asterisks around them. I'll probably notice. I'm going to be talking about the new stuff down here. I just want to quickly go over this old stuff to make sure everyone understands what's going on. About how when you're doing really kind of stringent science, and to reverse engineer Google's algorithms, how the real kind of concepts of how it works are coming out, and it really has little. Well, I mean, like that's the problem. There's 2,000 different candidates, right? There's 2,000 different SEO ideas that everyone has and talks about. Which one is the correct idea or the right way to think about it? The more corrector way. Is that a word? The more corrector way to think about it, because it's closer to the evidence and how the evidence show us and peel back the curtain of how things are actually working. And we can see the Wizard of Oz back there actually cranking out the search results. Okay, here's another paradigm shift in the way to think about rankings and the way to think about Google's indexing. And it's this concept here that N searches, N is a variable standing for a number, right? Like 22 or 1008 or 3. N searches produce Y indices, right? So a different variable for a different number. So like 2 searches can produce 5 different indices, or 5 searches can produce 25 different indices. It's this idea that it's not a one-to-one correlation of search and index. An index is not their database. The database is separate from the rank sort, which is separate from the filter sort, which is separate from the subsequent filter sorts you're going to get every time when you hit the enter key on Google, or you do different searches from different IP addresses, or you do different searches hitting different data centers, or you do different searches from different geolocations getting different indices. So we've known for a long time of the concept of, come on, whiteboard, hello. We've known for a long time of the concept of multivariable indexing. And that was just usually geo and personalization really is what we were used to. But that was more of a single, the database and the index seemed to be the same thing. They never were. They never were, by the way, but it seemed to be. And you thought you had position 8, and you thought, well, if I search in UK, it's up because it's UK, and personalization makes it go up even more, you know. And you thought about it as the same kind of thing. The database is the index, is the same deal. It was never this way, by the way. But that's kind of, unfortunately, kind of how we grew up thinking about it. This is how it actually works. There's a database of all of the 230 trillion web pages that they've discovered, crawled, and put in their database. And they don't index, they really don't index until the 2 last steps into the end. And so then you do a search, right? And then they give you the 1,000 shards. It's a shard collection. Shards are bits of pages. Those are bits of pages that match. Bits of pages / matches, right? There's a C in there, matches. And then from those 1,000, they take 1,000 of those, right? Then they filter and sort those, and then you get an index, right? And then every time, you know, times 2, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Every time you hit the enter key or you do a different search or from a different IP address, you get an index. Now, an index, the way they sorted it this time, the index is like a sort or a rank sort. In terms of the verb of ranking something, right? Not verb rank. Not what is that, a noun rank or whatever, you know what I mean? The verb of ranking, the verb of sorting, an index. You get A1, right? And every time you do this, you're going to get multiple different indexes. Now, you might be like, well, why is this concept more accurate than this concept, Josh? Well, because this concept was dead wrong from the beginning. The database and the index are not the same thing. And there's not, you know, that's not how it works, one. And this is, you know, whatever. This is abstracted from the data center. You know, that doesn't matter. I don't care about any of that. It is largely the same database pushed out from data center. I've tested it. I've tried it. And it takes seconds, right? So this bullshit about when they talk about that it takes hours or days to update the data centers, unless they've arbitrarily put something in between to slow down the release, it doesn't work that way. I've tested it. It's all the way from google.com to google.cat. It's the same on every single google.whatever within seconds. So it's pushed out within seconds. That's a load of crap that they roll something out for a long time. That's one of the first things you need to realize and know. But why this is a better way of thinking about it and not this over here, that's the wrong way of thinking about it, is because it's n equals y. It's not n equals n. This was an n equals n kind of an idea with small variation. That's not how it works at all. It's n equals y. And the reason why is because there's ranking, there's something I call ranking blocks. Like you'll always see, no matter what they do, that block of rankings is always moved up or down together because of certain features that keep them clumping together, certain ranking clusters. And so I see patterns in ranking clusters. The more you test this, the more you see patterns in ranking clusters. And the more I think of it as it's multiple indices. It's not a single index. That's why they give you an average rank. You know, they give you average, you rank 4.2, and that could be anywhere from ranking 2 to whatever 6.8 or whatever it is, right? And it's all floating point numbers. There's no solid integers, because here you rank here, but here you rank there, and here you rank here, and here you rank here, and all different places, different indexes that are kind of geo impersonal. But then there's all different kinds of a alpha, beta, gamma, alpha, beta, gamma, whatever, mu reasons why there's different indexes that they rely upon. And so that, I think, is a more accurate way of thinking about how the complications they're doing here in the filter sort are much more important. And they go out of their way to try to hide this from us. They remove the info : search operator, right? They take away other operators like that. And you see this in Quora all the time. In Quora, the line graphs are backwards from 10 to 1. You see them go like this, and they go like that and then down. This was the rank sort right here. You've seen this in Quora before? This was the filter rank sort where they took the 1,000 shard collection, this whole thing, the 100 pages with 10 each, 1,000 rank. So I think he just gets 10 pages actually. So it's the 100. But it used to be 1,000, 100. I think Quora, they don't even give you the full 1,000 anymore. They do some more processing here actually, and they give you anywhere from whatever 200 to 1,000. That's actually more accurate to how they're doing it now. But you see this kind of line graph in the charts in Quora all the time, where they did a filter sort and then they refiltered and resorted at this point here based on certain factors. This is where the magic is in the filter sort. It's the smooth CV plus potency to spot one versus the QDD, all this QDD stuff, the filter sorting they do to do different things based on different parameters of where you're going to be. And there's a variable number of these. And so for us to think that it's like this right here, that's completely and utterly wrong, and always has been. Actually, you need to get a little bit more of a complex understanding of kind of how this is working. And the upshot of that is that you don't own your spot. You don't even have a spot. You don't rank number 4. You rank number 4 in index number whatever, 37 alpha, beta, gamma, kappa 48926, or whatever it is, whatever experiment you're running. And ranking blocks are moving around, and you might be caught in one of these ranking blocks, or these other ranking clusters might be moving around, pushing up or down based on other filter sort kind of algorithms. And I believe my testing show that's a more accurate way of looking at it. The more signal that you have, the more signals you have. Now, what signals in what? Well, I'll say it first. The more signal you have, the more consistent your ranking spot per index. So the more ranking signal you have, quite frankly, that's what it is. The more ranking signal out of those so-called 200 ranking and sorting signals, the more ranking sorting signals you have, the more consistent your rank is going to be per index of whatever they're going to produce. And you might be wondering, okay, well, what are the ranking signals? I'll tell you. Here are the ranking signals, or at least in abstract. I'll give you an idea of kind of what you're looking at. This is what we call the formula for my mentorship group. This is the basic formula we work off of that ranks pages, virtually every single time when applied correctly and with enough effort. If you want the proof of this working, go to bit.ly SEO proof again. And it's got 8 different silos. This is what I call silos, right? Silos are bullshit. The normal way of doing silos, everyone else is what they're talking about is bullshit. That is not search engine optimization. Yes, you might be able to rank a page if you have a silo on it. It doesn't mean the silo helped you. I hope people realize now. Yes, you can do silos and they quote unquote work, meaning you're not going to meaning you still might have a hope in hell of ranking that site. It allowed you to get past the process of hammering on your keyboard and checking a rank per se, but it wasn't optimal, right? Yes, you can do silos, but that doesn't mean it's the optimal thing to do, and it's not helping you. So this is what I call silos, and there's 8 silos you need to dump money and time into, and that's at the end of the day what it means, that our science has shown and proven that there's 8 different silos you need to throw money and time into if you want to rank number 1. These have been proven scientifically. These are single variable proofs, this one at the top, and this is field tested stuff at the bottom. And some of them I name because they're quite well known, like On Page. It's the content vectoring that we do in Quora, using Quora, the best measuring SEO measuring tool that exists. Then there's also document potency, the QD aspect, special rankers that we found, outlying rankers, filters that are sitting on top of the ranking stuff. So like I said, nope, that's not how I do. Like I said, Google likes to, I like to draw, there we go. So like I said, there's the main, this is the main ranking, this is the content vectoring potency, and then they put patches on top of this. One is the aspect, one is geo, whatever it is. One could be freshness, and one is local, right? Or map pack stuff. So that's kind of how it works. These are all the filters or patches that they put on top of the basic algorithm. So there's more to it than what I've said here. I've cut it off, obviously. Text stuff, including no CRUF, no tag anomalies, no URL parameters. Definitely shouldn't have any URL parameters in your navigation or in your sitemaps. Duplicate pages you should be avoiding unless you're doing something especially black hat that we might do. Canonicals have to be set right. Your HTTPS should be set. Speed, obviously, they've admitted. There's a super secret number 3 here. Ooh, what could that be? Go look at Secret SEO Guru to join the mentorship group, and you can get the rest of this information here. The speed is, I gotta leave something back for the people paying. Speed, there's special ways and things to test. What speed is doing on, just make sure you test them on mobiles to keep in mind. Again, 3 major, super important ranking factors here, ranking silos, as I call them, that if you're not dumping time and money into, you are not going to rank. If you don't know what these are, and if you're not putting money into these, you're not going to rank. That's a reminder for my students, by the way. You have to do everything in 8 silos, probably, including the 9th one if you want to rank local, if you want to rank. And then the last thing we do are links. And I seem to have created a controversy last week. I didn't mean to, by saying that I think links are probably no more than 10% of the algorithm. I really don't think they are. This is like, in my opinion, this is 80 to 90% of the algorithm right here. This is another 5% depending. This is another 5% depending. These are the ones it depends on. It depends where the problems are. Like there could be huge problems here. But I think this is, anywhere from 1 to 5, 1 to 5. I think this is a maximum 10%. And this is also factored into here. So that's not necessarily, I mean, this is a pedagogical silo. This is not like a ranking silo. I think pedagogically, in terms of what you're trying to do here, I think links are no more than 10% of what your effort, and not necessarily of your budget, depending on if you're paying yourself or somebody else to do it, but 10% of your effort. And I probably think no more than 10% of the ranking algorithm. That's just based on the scientific testing that I've done and what I've proven to be ranking factors here, 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 and here. This one being the most important one. Probably. This is the one you can afford to screw up the least. You can have some screw-ups here. You can have a couple screw-ups here. You can have some screw-ups here. And you can't really afford very many screw-ups in here. I mean, you could have for either one of them, but my students know what I'm talking about because they know what these are. But you can't have a lot of screw-ups here. Here you can have a ton of screw-ups. Here you can have a bazillion screw-ups and it doesn't matter because these really don't matter that much anymore. Google knows everyone's manipulating these and moving off of these. And so 10%, I'll put a tilde here. That's an approximate. That's just my guess. That's just my from the hip guess. I haven't tested this because I couldn't give a flying fuck whether that's actually 10% or not, and it doesn't matter. So don't everyone get your panties in a knot. Don't everyone get your G-string in a knot there. This is just my guess to try and tell people to get off the link crack. This is way less important than you think it is. I get so many questions every week. Oh, Josh, where do I get links? Or I can't get any links. Or how do you do links? It doesn't matter. Ask me how to do this. Ask me how to join the group to learn how to do that. That's what's far, 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 far more important in learning how to use Cora in a special kind of weird way to do content vectoring and QDD aspect and document potency and the other special rankers and other stuff there. This is way more important than this component here, is really all I'm trying to say. Okay, so right, what was my point? My point is that the more signal you have in all these silos, the more signal you have and the more money and time you put in all these silos, the more likely you are you're going to rank consistently and higher. Not only are you going to rank higher, you're going to rank more, if that makes sense. Again, Google is not a single index entity. It makes no sense to think of it as a single index entity. It makes sense to think of it as a multiple index entity. There's multiple indexes that are going to get shuffled up at any given time, and you're going to rank higher per entity on each one. You're going to rank higher and more. Like, instead of you just being like, do a signal like this, sometimes you rank, sometimes you don't, sometimes you rank, sometimes you don't. You're going to rank consistently, and you're going to rank higher up into spot 1. And for those people who've looked at, you may have looked at Search Console, sometimes they see stuff like this and they're wondering, why are these, what are these crazy dots and dashes? How did I plug into the Nazis like code? How did I get the Enigma machine in my Search Console? And that's because you didn't have enough signal across all of these different silos to get the ranking signal that you needed. So I'm trying to give you as much as information for free as I can, but at the end of the day, if you really want to be serious about number 1, you've got to get in a group that's doing sufficient testing. And of course, you wouldn't be surprised to hear that I think I'm the only group that's doing it, really, quite frankly. Because I've looked at all the other groups. I consistently look at all the other groups. I'm a member of all the other groups, whether they know it or not. And I see what they're doing, and they don't get the results that we do, quite frankly, at bit.ly/SEO proof. They just don't. And the last problem with multivariable indexing, if you don't think of it in terms of N searches produce Y indices and knowing how to turn this on and off, knowing what triggers this and what turns this off, then quite frankly, all the other testing is kind of going to be ruined until you know how to turn this off. Okay, so that was the recap of what we talked about last week. Now let's move on to what I promised was, and these are really the more important ranking algorithms. That's the first silo that I showed you that's really much more important. If you have any questions about any of this, please email me at joshbachynski@gmail.com. And so let's take a look here at content vectoring. So what is content vectoring? Well, quite simply, content vectoring is very, very simple. And I'm not exactly sure how Google is doing it. Of course, no one knows exactly for sure how Google is doing anything, but I have tested it to a very, very high degree of what's going on. So let's do a search here. What should I search for? Let's search for best mattress topper. For some reason, I like this one. And let's go down here to this article in New York Magazine and go, okay, so best mattress topper was the query I looked for. Now, what is content vectoring? It's a little bit like latent semantic analysis. It's a little bit like term frequency inverse document frequency, or TF-IDF. It's kind of a group of all these things put together, but not quite the same. So when I search for best mattress toppers, in all the records in Google's database, they score every word and they change it into give it a number, right? In what's called their corpus. And this is basically how I'm thinking it's working. Now, people who might have studied this might laugh at me and say you're using the lingo wrong. I've never studied this at university. I don't know their technical lingo. And it doesn't really matter. I've reverse engineered this through science. I have my own language for it. It doesn't mean that I'm wrong. It just means that I'm calling things differently than they do. And even if you took a university course about this, it doesn't mean you know how Google's doing it. But what that means basically is they have best mattress topper in here. And now every word that shows up with it is going to have a certain percentage score, right? They're going to look at the entire corpus, and every single page that says best mattress toppers in it, they're going to assign a score to all these words that are with it. And so the word it show up with the phrase best mattress topper or best mattress toppers. So for example, now you ignore stop words like the, But for example, like words like firm or soft, right? That's going to be on all the documents in their database that say best mattress topper. A lot of them are going to say firm or soft. A lot of them are going to say bed. A lot of them are going to say purchase, right? And those words are all going to have a weight in relation to best mattress topper and in relation to all of the other documents in the database. So basically, it allows you to get a vector like this, and you can start to score. You can start to score the documents, and it gives you a line like this. This is literally what is called a vector. That's a vector where it's, this is a best mattress topper. Let's say this is best mattress topper 2019. It's going to be similar. This one is mattress topper. They're going to be along a similar vector because the words in there are going to add up. And so best mattress topper is going to be worth, it's going to have a score of 100% to itself. Like I said, soft, for example, might show up in 62% of the documents. And so it's going to be 62% related to this, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that, in a nutshell, that's very, very basic, as I understand, content semantic vectoring. The other issue is that, let's say what happens when you have a vector for, like, this is bass guitar versus something like bass fishing. Now, it has the word bass or bass in it, which are exactly the same. How is a dumb computer program that doesn't understand anything about anything going to tell articles that are about bass guitar apart from bass fishing? Well, the way the vector works is that these spectrum of numbers are going to give you a certain direction, almost like on a clock. That's how I like to imagine it. And the bass fishing is going to go the exact opposite direction. It's going to have bass in common. So all those talk about bass. There's going to be all the words bass in there, but then we're going to have fishing over here, and we're going to have guitar and guitar-related words over here, which push them further and further apart. And they have much, much, much different vectors. Their vectors end up being quite different because of the relation of the other words, or that is to say, the lack of relation of the other words. Because these are so non-related, fish shows up in articles with the word guitar in the database like 0.0 whatever it is 5% of the time, and this shows up with fish whatever it is 1% of the time. And there's going to be some confusion in here with, like, guitarists who are named John Fish, who plays guitar, bass guitar, and also likes to do bass fishing. Google's going to get really confused about those documents, and sometimes you'll notice them bubble up here, and you'll be able to see them. You'll definitely see them in image search when Google gets image search wrong, because you can scroll through a whole bunch of images really, really fast. Or if you scroll down to like page 10 or page 100, you're going to see bass fishing documents when you search for bass guitar, or vice versa, because there's some guy named John Fish. He's a bassist and he likes playing bass guitar, right? And he also likes going bass fishing, and that's going to confuse the hell out of Google, because at some point these numbers are going to be similar enough. But when the numbers are super different, they do a diff on this basically, and then they do a sort on that for similarity. They compare those two different vectors, and that's how they get different kinds of synonyms. This is how Google understands synonyms, so to speak. And so that's the basic way how I understand how that works. Again, someone in university, is probably going to laugh and be like, that's not how it works at all, but it uses monkeys or whatever they're going to say. I don't care. This is how I understand it based on the scientific testing that I've done. And I've triggered every part of this. Every part of this that I'm drawing here, I've triggered that. I've played with that. I've tested that and seen where this happens. And they don't even, there's discovery, crawl, index, filter, and rank, right? You even see where in each area they break off depending on what score you have for this thing. They make decisions at all levels here based on the numbers they get for the documents. which makes sense because they want to spend as little money as possible using computing power. This equals money lost for Google. They lose money the more they do this. So they have very efficient algorithms in processing down to a very fine degree of where they're going to be putting this money and where they're going to be processing that, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So like I said, when you're proceeding up to spot number one, content vectoring is the major algorithm. It is the number one algo. It is the major rank and sort algorithm. If it wasn't for all those QDD patches, it would be a very basic, well, actually, I lied. Sorry. That's slightly inaccurate. It would be, and I thought for a time that content vectoring is the number one algorithm. And it would be very simple to notice, and everyone else would have noticed by now. But there's two other factors that you need to add in. One is proximity, and the other is element potency. And so those together are the majority of the ranking algorithm. Google is just still a dumb Control F search, but instead of using a specific string you type in, it also floats in all of their content vector synonyms. And so that's how the search works. That is all Google is a dumb Control F in Word. But instead of also searching for what you specifically typed in, they score every document with a content vectoring number that tells them that it's similar, right? And then they apply, they score each document also with proximity, and they score it with element potency. That's one QDD aspect sort is element potency. Is another way they sort it on well, I don't know. I don't know if it's before or after processing, before or after the fetch. I don't know if it's before or after the fetch that they do element potency. I suspect it's probably after. It's probably going to be after the fetch they're doing element potency. But proximity, I'm pretty sure they're doing before the fetch, for example. So anyway, that's neither here nor there for your ranking, really, at the end of the day. But so this is how they are doing this is the full ranking at the end of the day. When you really understand how all this works, then you understand how to rank pages. So let me write down some of these rules here that I'm talking about. So content vectoring is they assign a score of relatedness, I'll say it that way, to each word to every other word in each document in their it's called corpus, I believe, in the lingo, or their database. Okay, and this way they can tell what is related to what without having to understand, without having to have any human intercedence. That's the reason why. Any actual intelligent intercedence. And you don't ever have to say, I could get something ranking, theoretically speaking, for best mattress toppers, even if I never said best mattress topper in it or said it very much at all, because I said firm and soft and bed a lot, right? It's just wait. At the end of the day, it's just wait. At the end of the day, it's just that these words here, this word here, bed, this word here weighs as much, you add it up enough, it weighs as much for, memory foam, that would be a major one in the vector. It weighs as much, I use enough words to weigh as much as the document at the top, and the heaviest document wins. At the end of the day, that is the basis of Google's algorithms. I used these words like soft that related to best mattress toppers so much that I outweighed all the other documents. Here's the document weights. I just added it enough that I outweighed them, and then I get to the top. And that's what it would have been if it wasn't for these other factors: proximity, element potency, and then QDD aspect, and all different kinds of things that are going on to filter it on top, right? But that's it. That's it. That's all the magic. Now you understand it. Now you get it. Now you know Google. You know exactly how Google thinks. Science was able to reverse engineer exactly how Google thinks, and that's it. It's not mystical, and it makes sense because when you talk to the patent guys, they're like, yeah, those are all the patents. When you talk to to the guys who kiss their butts at conferences and are still buying them beers like I used to, but I stopped because, you know, I have a life and a conscience. And I decided I'll reverse engineer myself. And I'm sick and tired of listening to their bullshit in their lives. That's what they say too. They'll say like all the little golden nuggets that they from performing fellatio, figuratively speaking, on Google members at conferences, figuratively, I assume, the little golden nuggets that they might toss, the little scraps that the Google gods might toss the little dogs at the conferences from their table every now and then, confirm what I've just been able to tell by science anyway, and by good measuring tools like Cora anyway, and from doing single variable experiments with a 0% standard deviation, with a 0% margin of error for like 95% of the tests, depending on how you're doing it. So I was able just to piece that together, and with some creativity, I was able to figure it out. Now, how does this help you rank? Well, let's go back to here. So they score. Let's just make sure I understand it. So they score a sign of relatedness to each word and every other word in each document in their corpus, so that they was related to each of them having human antecedents. This is the basis of the entire algorithm. That's it. And then the only difference is the only diff is proximity in document analysis, element potency, and over optimization in filter sort, I believe, plus all other filter sorts. That includes the QDD aspect, geo, et cetera, freshness, everything else that they have there. Random tests, experiments they're doing, randomizing it just so we can reverse engineer it. That's something else they do, by the way, with it super effing annoying. And if you don't know how to turn that off, then all your tests are screwed. So yeah, so I mean that goes with everything else. So this is, you need to understand kind of how this works if you're going to use any tool right. It's not LSI, it's not TF-IDF, it's not any of those specifically. It's just a couple of those normally, and I've tested this at the scientific level. I've measured this down to the scientific level and tested it against LSA and tested it against TF-IDF and tested it against all these different things, and so I know exactly what it is at this point. Hopefully, don't change it next month because that'd be super annoying. But it's unlikely they will, because they've doubled down on this. This is their algorithm from now on. And then finally, so let's talk about document potency and element potency, because that's one of the last aspects, pun fully intended. Oh, proximity. What is proximity, you might be wondering? If anyone wants me to go over proximity, put so in the chat. If you want me to go over proximity, let me know. See if there's any other questions here. Oh, Deidre asks, is AMP still a ranking factor when looking at it from the POV site and site speed and conversion rates? Yes, AMP is still a ranking factor. Some people see it. Some people swear by AMP. I haven't seen it much in testing. I can't get it to rank higher than anything else. So I just think that if you have AMP, and I think it's more on news queries and things like that, if you have AMP and that's going to be better, they'll give it to you. But I've never seen a bonus from it. I've never seen a boost from AMP. So I would just rather just have a responsive design, which is kind of what they've been recommending the whole time. I would rather, they don't really talk about AMP anymore, as far as I know. I would just have a responsive design that is super fast. Is really what I would do there. Okay, Taman asks, yes, please go over proximity. Okay, well, seeing as that you asked, because I'm running out of time here. So proximity, quite frankly, is the area in which you dump your match words. And this also relates, so that's the area in which you dump your match words, very, very simply. So words at the bottom of the document are in this content vectoring. It's also per document as well. No. I don't even know how to use Windows. I'm a Mac guy, sorry. Oh, now my mouse is, see how my mouse is stuck at the top there? That's really weird. There we go, okay. Google is hacking my computer. They're trying to turn off the signal. You notice this scoring that I talked about here? This is not only per documents in the corpus, but per document. So if this is your document and this is the words, these two words, let me change the color here, green. We can see that these two words here are going to be scored closer. They're going to have a higher percentage than this word to this word is going to have a lower percentage. So that is also part of the content vectoring. So proximity is important. It's super important, actually. And I don't think there's any other group that really understands how this works. And it's not, so that in general, that's how it works. There's some other things you need to do with stuff that goes up top here as well. But so you'll learn how to fully manipulate this in my group. But in a nutshell, that's kind of just how it works. And I see people breaking this rule all the time. They don't do this right all the time. And it is a big deal. So if you don't do this right, you are going to have a problem ranking. And I see them getting this wrong all the time. And so there's a certain art and a science doing this as well, which I proved. And so you need to really have the correct areas for all these different things. The right words need to go in the right places. So I'm going to put the right words need to go in the right places. Okay, and so that also leads us into document potency and element potency. So document potency and element potency is kind of like match words versus density or keyword density. For those of you who are familiar with match words, if you've been using POP or Cora and just the default way they say to use it, which is wrong, it's completely wrong based on the science that I have. Don't get me wrong, Cora is still a great tool and you still need it, but you need to know how to use it properly. And the way they suggest is not the way to use it properly. But they don't know; they're just tool makers. They're not really doing SEO science in a serious way. They're more tool makers really at the end of the day. You need to understand how this potency works, and it's kind of it's not match words, it's not keyword density, it's a little bit of both, and it differs per area. So there's different areas that you need to worry about that in some cases you'd be way under threshold, or in some cases you'd be way over threshold. And so in general, the shortest document wins. So there's another the shortest let me just say entity. The shortest entity wins. Now, when I say entity, I don't mean what everyone else in the SEO industry means by entity. Or I could say object. Let's say object, talking about like a document object model. Maybe that would make more sense or not confuse people. I'm not really sure. But in general, the shortest object wins. The shortest entity wins. The shortest thing wins. I'm trying not to confuse people. I'm probably getting more confusing. The shortest entity wins. So this goes directly against what the common idea is, that you need to match word counts, for example, for other documents. It is dead wrong. You do not want to match the word count of other documents. You want to match the content vector weight. You need to match the document potency and the element potency. The way you match the document potency in general is by matching the element potency and getting proximity right. Does that make more sense now? So like I said, you don't want to match word counts. You don't want to match keywords even. You don't want to match this, EMQs and PMQs. You don't want to do that. That's not the way it works, right? You need to match, in general, you need to match document potency, which is kind of content vectoring plus this other stuff I'm talking about. You need to match document potency, and the way you match document potency is by getting the element potency correct and getting the proximity correct. And while you're doing it, you might as well select an aspect as you're doing it to get that boost at the same time. And then keep in mind there's multivariable indexes and see how Google is treating you in each different index. That, in a nutshell, is the essence of SEO right there. Not only the essence of how the algorithms are working, but because that's the essence of how the algorithms are working, that's the essence of the craft that I just mentioned. Basically, as I said, You don't want to match word counts. You don't want to match EMQs and PMQs and variant keywords. None of that matters. All that is a rough guess. None of that is based on any on the correct science or on the latest science. What you need to do is you need to match the vector weight, which is closer to document potency, because you got the element potency correct with the proximity, and while still having the correct number of proper match words in the different areas, while still having the shortest entity per these things. And then you also chose an aspect while you're at it, so you could get these potential boosts and get Google to get you out of that sandbox. And you understand you have a multivariable index you're dealing with. And so you need to check in different indexes how Google is treating you, because if you're not checking that, how can you optimize for it? Right? And then you see, oh, okay, from more of a CTR perspective, or more of a quality perspective, you're like, oh, okay, traffic is liking this, traffic's not liking that. Google, why did you choose me for this aspect? It doesn't make any sense. This is just a dumb thing. I need to rewrite this sentence. I need to change this thing. That kind of a deal. So that, in a nutshell, is how it's working, folks. At a very high level, at a scientific level, that's how science can understand and reverse engineer Google's algorithms. We just have 4 minutes left. Let's see here if I can answer any questions here. If you guys have questions, go ahead and ask them now. Tom Shaw asks, what is the correct way to set up permalink structure for SEO in WordPress? Do you set up a custom category and a post name? Wow. Okay. So that's really different than what we were talking about. Okay. So, okay. I don't even use WordPress. And so here we have a problem of the researcher scientist, and you're asking them like, and how's the coffee maker work? And the researcher scientist is like, I don't know. My head's so full of math, I can't even think of how to make coffee. You know, like you're asking the wrong guy this question, right? I don't know what permalinks are in WordPress necessarily. Do you mean permanent external links that point external? Do you mean permanent internal links? But no, it's this question is so far removed from what you need to be asking. This question is so far removed from what you need to be thinking. You need to do more research and learn some more basic structures before you understand this. You should understand HTML. You shouldn't be using WordPress as a crutch. And Tom, I don't mean to call you out or anything. I'm just saying for people who kind of trying to understand this more advanced reverse engineering of Google's algorithms. This question seems to me, Tom, forgive me for saying, but it looks a little bit like using WordPress like a crutch. You can't use WordPress like a crutch. You would need to know how to do HTML. If you know what kind of permalinks you're talking about permanent links to blog posts, I'm guessing. That's all wrong. All of that is wrong. That's no. The answer is no. No, just no. You need to join a group that can teach you kind of how to understand SEO at a kind of a deeper level. Bingo Bongo asks, I just joined. Can you define some of the terms you mentioned, like document potency, please? Sure, I already have. If you've joined, ask the question in our Discord, and I'd be happy to answer them there for you, and it would be my pleasure. Chris says, permalink inside WordPress is your URL structure. You want to set it up as custom. No date. I see. Okay, so Chris says, who's a longtime watcher of the show, that permalink inside WordPress is your URL structure. Oh, great. Okay, good to know. And yeah, so the URL structure, I've tested it. I've tested the exact kind of URL structure you wanted. Google recently changed this. In the last update, the June update, they changed the way that URL, the QDD URL filter is working. So it used to be exact match domains were the best. Not anymore. Not anymore. So that was the problem of going with exact match domain, is that you can enjoy a boost for a while and then Google can turn it off anytime they want, because Google's a bunch of jerks and they see what we're all doing. And so you kind of want to use the algorithms that no one else is using. You want to kind of game the algorithms that other people are not gaming, because then it's much less chance that Google's going to notice what you're doing and then change everything on you, which is a huge pain in the butt. But I can tell you in the June update, they did change the way that URLs are scored. So I have the current testing. Join the group, and I'd love to show you. And Chris says, I love you, Josh. I love you too, Chris. I'm glad you were able to make it. So this has been SEO Hangouts with Josh Bachynski. I hope this has been useful. If you have any questions at all, please email me at joshbachynski@gmail.com. If you need an audit for what's going on, you can't figure out what's going on with your website. If you want more SEO education, if you want to get results like I showed you in Bitly SEO Proof, email me at joshbachynski@gmail.com. Next week, I think I'm going to go over maybe some tests I've done, or if you guys have anything you want, maybe put it in the comments of what you'd like to see on the show. Tests I've gone over, maybe specific tests if you want to get more into that, into some of the data, or if you'd like me to talk at more of a high level about how to reverse Google's algorithms. There's a couple other ones that I haven't really mentioned or talked about because those are the biggest ones I talked about in the last 2 days. So put down in the comments more what you'd like to see, and we'll see you next time. And I'd like to say good luck in the SERPs. And for those about to rank, we salute you. We'll see you next week. Actually, no, sorry. I digress. I won't see you next week. Next week is my 101 course, my monthly course for my subscribers, for my mentorship group. And we're going to go over hardcore using Quora to manipulate the content vectoring and the element potency and the document potency and the proximity. So we're using Quora, which is a super awesome tool built by the very brilliant Ted Kubitis, brilliant programmer. And we're using that tool to tear into the content vectoring and how to reverse engineer that, manipulate that, tear into element potency, document potency, and proximity, and how to tear into those things, and how to use Quora to outrank everybody easily using all these kind of algorithms and using this reverse engineering. So that's what I'm doing this week. If you'd like to get access to that course, sure, email me at joshbachynski@gmail.com and we can get you access. It's for my mentorship students. You can join for that course and leave if you want, or you can join in and stay. It's your choice. The price is the same, and we're doing a bit of a special for that. So email me at joshbachynski@gmail.com, and we'll see you next week. The week after. We'll see you the next week I'm doing, which is the week after. In 2 weeks. That doesn't make any sense. I'm leaving now. Bye.